The makers of MudRunner and SnowRunner just put out a new trailer that shows their latest game called Expeditions, a MudRunner game, which is an interesting title. And this game is clearly in that same MudRunner SnowRunner genre, but with some new things and gameplay. So let's take a first look at this game, pick it apart for what it has to offer, and see what we have to look forward to. I'm going to start with the game trailer and pause it at key moments because there is a lot we can glean from this footage. It starts with the view of this terrain through what is the lens of a drone we'll be able to use in the game. Now, I'm quite certain it's a drone lens we're looking through because just in a little bit, when they're talking about the drone, this is the same sort of lens view that they'll show us. Right now, off the bat, there's a couple things this reveals. One is the obvious, that we're going to be able to use a drone for a little bit of advanced scouting. But what I also noticed is as the camera pans around, the distance changes and the height meter is changing. But also, the drone itself is moving. So it seems it's giving us some feedback about how far the drone may have traveled and maybe its current elevation relative to its launch point. We can see that it started out at about a -3, then slowly increased as it moved around a little until it was at a +6. That's at least what it seems like. And maybe if you fly the drone all the way to the ground, it'll tell you exactly how far it is and the elevation differential. But in any case, it looks like we might be able to get a little readout on the terrain, as well as just taking a look at what's ahead. We'll just have to see. Next, they showed us a very quick image of a scout doing some hill climbing, which is very familiar to its predecessors. And overall, I think this game does have more of a focus on scouting and hopefully improving that scouting gameplay than in the prior SnowRunner. If you've played SnowRunner, you've found that scouts do have their role in that game and are useful, but generally are not that great performers in terms of driving them around relative to the trucks. Now, in this next scene, and some others coming up, it's really important because it seems that even with a greater emphasis on scouting, Expeditions is also going to have that much beloved hauling aspect that we've had in the other games. We'll see it again in some other footage, but even here in this very quick opening shot, this looks like some sort of flatbed you'll be able to carry things on. We also get to see some really familiar faces like the International Scout we have now in SnowRunner. So it looks like there will be a fair amount of the assets carrying over from the prior game. Whether your most loved vehicle will be in this one, we don't know. But in terms of expectations, it doesn't look like we're going to get a new full set of A to Z vehicles in this game. There's going to be some reuse. Now, I'm stopping briefly on this terrain because already we've seen a couple different biomes as maps. They showed us the International Scout in an area that looked very Arizona desert and Grand Canyon. And here, we're in more of a wooded, rocky, mountainous area. So it's nice to see that there's going to be this wide variation of environments that we're going to have available. In SnowRunner, there wasn't often a lot of variation between going from, let's say, Michigan over into Alaska. Yes, the maps were all different, but the overall feel of what was around you was kind of the same. So having very different maps, I think is cool. Next, we get a really good shot of the drone. And we get to see that this isn't one of those little handheld portable drones. This is more like a whole helicopter. So it's not a tiny thing. I was wondering if this drone would be something you could pack up and take with you, but clearly it's not. At least not this one. In reading about this game, there appears to be two kinds of drones. A reconnaissance drone like the one pictured in the trailer, and a camera drone that you can pack with you. I can really only talk, though, about the one they actually showed. In seeing it here on the helipad with some sort of control station behind it, and kind of blocked in with this railing, I strongly suspect this is one of the elements that's going to go along with the base building that's part of this new release. Yes, in some way, we're going to have the ability to manage and build out a base, or perhaps multiple bases, equip them with various functions, which might include things like this drone, refueling, repairs, and the kind of things that have typically been at fixed locations in the SnowRunner map. Now we may have to somehow earn and build ourselves these things on these new maps. Again, this is speculation, but knowing that they said there is some base management as well as personnel management at the base, after seeing this drone platform, that concept seems to come together just a little bit more for me and makes sense. There may be some fixed installations as well, but I think it's reasonable to believe that this drone is one of the key abilities we'll be able to unlock and apply at our base. And this next very quick scene where the drone has discovered a new objective, we can see that this drone will be a very powerful tool for discovery, perhaps adding to or maybe even replacing the prior watchtower method that was used in SnowRunner. Now, I had to stop again on this super quick clip because at first I really didn't pick up on what it was showing us there. That was unique anyway. But while we're seeing the drone in some sort of scan mode, it's picking up, well, it looks like some fossilized impressions of an animal down in the rock below. A discovery of some sort of an ancient fossil, which I'll guess lends to part of this name of the new game being called Expeditions. Once you've detected something like this, it may be that you have to go on an expedition in your vehicle to go check it out in person. That's what I'm guessing. This next clip, though, is something totally different than the drone. We're looking through a different lens. This looks like a set of binoculars. It's got a different kind of magnification readout on the side. And here, it also looks like it's detecting some sort of objective. So back to my earlier comment, it looks like this game is going to have different ways to discover these objectives than the watchtower mechanism. So for instance, everyone may have access to the binoculars that you can use whenever you have a direct line of sight. But if you really want to look over that next hill, then you need to get the drone. That need to have a direct line of sight could also push the player to want to drive up to a higher vista to get a look around, to survey the land. They showed several nice environmental asset pictures with a couple more shots of the scouts in action, but then they got to the anchor. Just based on the picture and brief description, it gives a ton of information. First of all, it supports 30,000 pounds, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. But secondly, it says quick install and lightweight convenient storage. Because it's something that you can install, it means it must be portable. So these should be things that we can carry around with us and install in strategic locations to provide anchor points. That second statement about being lightweight convenient storage plays into another new game feature that I really like, but I'll talk about more on that one in just a second. Here, in what looks like just B-roll footage of the game, again, it reveals two important game features. One is more confirmation of some cargo being hauled on the back of a truck, but the other is that this is 3 different vehicles, suggesting a continuance of the multiplayer aspect of SnowRunner. We'll also have the familiar winch, and it shows its load capacity here of 15,000 pounds. Now, with the anchor having a 30,000 pound capacity, we saw the anchor being used with the winch, so I'm not sure how that works out, unless maybe there's also winch rope upgrades. And this is just an advertisement trailer, so I'm sure however that's arranged, it'll work out. But what did occur to me with them having this specific load capacity is it made me wonder if overloading a winch will make it break or snap the rope or fail in some way beyond just not being able to pull the given amount of weight. They also showed us a metal detector, which at first I dismissed as anything special, because we have the metal detector in SnowRunner for some special missions. But here, it may have a different use. It says item detection by color system, which may mean gameplay where we have to find different kinds of metals. Or, because the name of the game is Expedition, we're looking for some sort of buried objects. If it is a buried object, does that mean we get a piece of machinery like a backhoe to go dig it up? It's all kind of wild guessing here, but there were so many mods to SnowRunner introducing farm-like equipment, and even with the base game itself starting to dip into logging and logging specific cranes. So I wouldn't put it beyond this next evolution of the game to start introducing that next kind of layer. You go out with your scout, metal detect, and find something buried. Then come back with the big vehicle to dig it up and haul it back to your base. Again, just guessing, but why make this special note in the trailer about what has been in SnowRunner a fairly insignificant piece of equipment? It makes me think there's more gameplay associated with it in Expeditions. Next, they showed us this echo sounder, allowing us to see the depth of water. And even though I never played Spintires, I've heard it said that there was some sort of similar depth finder in that game, so they're probably just bringing that utility forward. I paused on this next picture a while to try to look for clues, but this is probably some sort of fixed asset in the game. Maybe it's more? Maybe it's some sort of temporary habitat? But I couldn't really glean anything definitive from this picture. Tell me what you think in the comments. I could be overlooking something obvious. This next bit of game feature I was really excited about. We're still going to have the roof racks and add-on supply carriers like we have in SnowRunner for bringing along extra fuel or repairs, but these all now look completely customizable. You can see in the picture that there's definitely different slots that you'll be able to load up with different types of components to carry with you. So maybe you want to carry all repair pieces or a ton of extra fuel. And going all the way back to that anchor I mentioned that I said was lightweight storage, that's likely one of the extra parts you can choose to include or not include in your rack supplies based on your expedition. I really like this feature, and with there seeming to be more emphasis in this game on utilizing various tools, we might not even be seeing the full extent of what you can carry with you. One of the things I really liked about SnowRunner's hard mode, which I'll be talking about more in a coming video, is the fact that I do have to do a little more pre-planning, a little more advanced setup. Make sure I've positioned a fuel trailer at some strategic spot to refuel my truck after coming out of a particularly difficult swamp rescue mission or something. So the ability to be able to customize and pre-plan a specific expedition setup with what I'm carrying just feels right. And this seems to be true with all these supply add-ons that you can have for your vehicles. We can still set the very handy waypoints in this scene, but jumping back just a second in the video, we get to see a great layout of the area's map view. One thing that stuck out to me on this map, and is very likely true of all the maps, is that there were virtually no roads. There was only one tiny little road that I could see just around some sort of little town or settlement. This singular element might be a huge differentiator between Expeditions and the prior SnowRunner MudRunner series. In those games, you are largely led to areas of interest by the roads. Occasionally, you had to venture a short distance away from a road to reach something, but by and large, the network of roads is how you got from point A to point B on the map. True, it was great fun to just set off through the woods or mountains to try to make your way into the wilderness, but there was never really anything there, and you did it just for fun if you were playing in normal mode. Here, it looks like your travels and pathfinding might be a lot more up to you. The binoculars and drone might play a really significant role in revealing the map and plotting your course, and leaving it much more up to you on how you get from point A to point B. I like this additional challenge, and even though I probably will miss being led a bit by an established road, as muddy or horrible as they might have been, if this is how the rest of the maps are, then this is definitely a deviation from the prior SnowRunner, and does set it apart from it as more of its own expedition game. I scoured more of the footage to look for clues, and in this picture here I did see a little station with tires in the upper left, maybe indicating that kind of repair facility I mentioned that you can build at your own base. Maybe it's just a fixed asset in the game. I really can't say for certain. And just to give the player a starting point, you're likely going to start out at some sort of established base camp like this that has all these things already there. And then it's up to you to establish your own camps as you go out exploring or go to other maps. There were some other quick promotional shots, but even in the final exit page, it told me a lot. This game will be compatible on the PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, and PC, and will also be backwards compatible to some of the older consoles like PS4. So that'll probably make a lot of people happy, but maybe could get others upset, as that backwards compatibility sometimes is thought to hold a game back from being absolutely all it can be. I tend to think that it's best to include as many people as possible, and it shows you're being a little considerate of your player base. And I think, in all likelihood, if there is some key feature that would require a game developer to move forwards in compatibility, then they would probably drop that backwards support. But that's just what I would suspect. We also got a shot of the camera drone I mentioned earlier that's different than the reconnaissance drone we saw on the helipad. So what I'm going to do now is show you the entire trailer uninterrupted by my freeze frame so you can enjoy it all together. This was a rather deep dive into the trailer, and I'm excited about this next evolution of the game series. But let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll be talking to you later.